back in the early 2000s. My friend and colleague Mac DeFord and I were both on the board of the Camden Conference on Foreign Relations. And we had been encouraged to put on a library event. The community events, the whole purpose of them was to drum up interest in the conference to sell seats for the forthcoming conference. Now I say we were encouraged, but it was a lot stronger than that, because the person who was doing the encouraging was a remarkable character. His name was Galen Plummer, Captain Galen Plummer, commanding officer of the USS Archerfish, a nuclear submarine that made its way under the polar ice cap back and forth, and occasionally came up through the polar ice to make sure there were no rascals there that might do us harm. Galen was a people person, one of the finest natural leaders I've ever met in my entire life. You wanted to do whatever it was that Galen wanted you to do, because who could not? He was that kind of a leader. And he was also a visionary. And his great vision was that the Camden Conference, which prior to this had been a one weekend a year event, ought to be a year-round event. And the community exercises, the presentations, would be the mechanism by which we made ourselves felt in the community and the broader community over the entire year. So anyway, Mac and I were putty in Galen's hands. We committed to do something, who knows what. We're both history buffs, as it turns out. So we decided to put on a history of the forthcoming conference was about China, so a history of China. And we picked a 100-year period, the 20th century, and we characterized it as a gallop through Chinese history, 100 years in 100 minutes. That first roadshow wasn't really a roadshow. It was offered only at one library, the Rockport Public Library, but the librarian immediately realized that so many people were coming that we would overflow the limited space there. So she booked the Rockport Assembly Hall, and we presented it there with a maximum attendance of 100, and it was a sellout crowd. I mean, I say sellout crowd, we didn't charge anything, but it was full. In fact, one woman told me later that she'd had to park, 10-minute walk away because parking is so limited in Rockport, and that by the time she got there was no room to come in. So we were turning people away. As I say, it wasn't really a roadshow because we just had one instance, but subsequent years we realized that 100 minutes of presentation takes about 100 hours each to prepare, so we wanted to put it on more than once, and it became a roadshow. One in Rockport or Camden at the Opera House, in either of those two places, and another one in Portland, one in Belfast, maybe Orono one year, and Ellsworth. It became the History Roadshow. And we've done it so far for 13 years. We picked different topics, but the topic was always something to do with whatever the topic of the Camden Conference was that year. A history of something germane to the conference. One year the conference was about food and water, and we decided to put on a show about the Gilded Age, the history of the Gilded Age in the United States. Not clear to me what that had to do with food and water, but often the history show topic, the relationship to the conference topic was in the eye of the beholder. In subsequent years, we did a lot of research. For our show in Africa, we had to go to Africa. And of course, for the Roman Empire show, we had to go to Rome. For the Gilded Age show, we went to some of the various Gilded Age locations. And for the history of Russia, we had to go to Russia. And we always, I used to worry at the very beginning that somebody in the audience is going to know more than we know about whatever the topic is. And Max said, "No, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it." He said, "We're going to go into this so deep that nobody's going to know. At that moment, nobody's going to know more about the whole of the show than we do." And he turned out to be right. But a side effect of that was we got way too much material. 100 minutes was a real barrier. We were trimming great stuff out of the different history shows. And I thought I'd end this intro by telling you one of the things that ended up on the cutting room floor. This was for our Africa history. We're telling about the discovery of gold in South Africa at the Rand, the mines of the Rand that are at present day Johannesburg. The miners were quickly discovering that the mines had been worked before, and they called in the archaeologists to say, you know, what do these early markings mean? And the archaeologists came to the conclusion that the mines had been worked before, but more than 2,000 or 3,000 years earlier. It was a long time before. And someone came up with this great theory that the mines of the Rand were really the mines of Ophir, mentioned in the Bible. I don't know if you remember this from the book of Kings, but Solomon goes to Ophir and he brings back 50 talents of gold. They were the mines of King Solomon, as mentioned in the Bible. And a young officer whose name was Henry R. Haggard, was present at this, and he was fascinated by this whole theory that these were the mines of Ophir. And he went back to London for his marriage and stayed there, gave up his commission, and stayed in London. And he wrote a book about the discovery of King Solomon's mines. He called the book King Solomon's Mines. And it turned out to be his personal gold mine. It probably sold several million copies by now, and it made him a rich man while he was still alive. So that was something that I thought was fascinating, the idea that the gold mines of the Rand turned out to inspire H. Rider Haggard to write his wonderful book, King Solomon's Mines. That was something that ended up on the cutting room floor. People tell us that the history shows are a lot of fun, and I hope you'll have fun going through some of the videos and learn something while you're at it. As much fun as they are to watch, I have to tell you, they were more fun to make. So anyway, I hope you enjoy them.